I'm Lizzie. I'm going to be at the Brookings Haas Center. I cut that.
My name is Tenzin. I'm going to be in India working with the Tibetan government's Department of Health.
All right, very cool. So this is going to be fairly short. We're going to be covering mostly pre-trip, what to prepare for. That's probably the most important part. And then also covering some basic situations that come up when you're going to be in your host country. A lot of this will also be covered in a little bit more detail on the April 21st, this Saturday, orientation and Branner dining from 2 to 6 p.m. Has everyone been able to RSVP to that?
I have not received information about that.
You have not received information about it?
No,
Okay.
about that.
You should have gotten a couple emails. I'll talk to you about it afterwards. Does anyone else have any issues with that? Or have been all able to fill out the RSVP form? Okay. All right. Awesome. And I apologize. I mean, this is old news to you guys, especially since a lot of you guys are probably international travelers who are pretty experienced. So the format of this is we'll talk a little bit about that, and then Otis and Krista will be here to answer any sort of specific questions you have for international fellowships. So the most important thing to do before you go is visa, as Elise definitely hammered on during their orientation earlier. Make sure you get that all the way if you haven't already taken any steps to kind of figure out how to procure that. Definitely get on that. Number 2 is any entry requirements for the country. And number 3 is immunizations, and I'll go over those in a little bit more detail. So first up, the documents, passport and visa. Besides that, you might also want to bring other official documents like student ID, driver's license, health insurance ID, prescriptions for any medications you need to be taking. Just be sure to take all of those precautions, and also make copies of your official documents, so that way if, say, you lose your wallet or you lose your folder or something, you have a backup set with you in the country as well. As far as insurance goes, it's really important to get traveler's insurance. We have a couple of links to sites that I'll be sending out all this information to you guys in an email afterwards, but we have a couple of links to some sites that are kind of go-to for international fellows, but getting traveler's insurance is a really, really good idea. So I'm sure Otis and Krista can talk to. And then as far as immunizations and medications go, make sure to check out the specific guidelines of whatever your region or host country is going to be. And then you can also, Baden Health, the health clinic also has a lot of information on that as well. You can get some of the immunizations done there, especially for regions that are dealing with malaria. Really important to get malaria pills. And then as far as money goes, while you're in your host country, it's important to have kind of a diverse number of options open to you. So traveler's checks, having a credit or ATM card, as well as having, you know, maybe some American currency on you as well, depending on your locations. That's accepted in a lot of places. But basically, kind of the theme of international overall, and definitely including money as well, is to make sure you have all your bases covered, and that if something goes wrong, you have another option to back it up. So that definitely goes for money as well. And then packing, I'm going to send out a list of maybe some items for that. I'm not going to waste your time kind of listening through all the basic packing items. So that's kind of the first part of kind of pre-trip before you go. Most important being visas, entry requirements, immunizations, and making sure you have photocopies of all your documents, multiple ways to pay for things. Any questions on kind of that pre-trip stuff?
Just a comment on the immunization. So the travel clinic at Baden, you can sign up for it. They'll tell you what immunizations you need. They can give you the immunizations. Like it can be like the immunizations aren't always like super cheap, but I don't know that that's like a function of Baden. It might just be a function of like not that many people get typhoid vaccines anymore. So yeah, so they'll tell you things you need, and they'll also give you a little booklet that, especially so yellow fever is a big entry requirement. You have to be immunized for yellow fever a lot of times. So like you'll need them to mark down that you don't have yellow fever and that you're immunized for it. So you should bring that. I forgot mine. They still let me into the country, but I was really stressed out on the plane. So.
And it's really important to like start doing that now, because you can't exactly go in and get like 5 or 6 immunizations at once. So just make sure you kind of.
It hurts if you do.
What?
It hurts if you do.
Yeah.
So your arm for a week.
Yeah. So start planning that and just kind of space it out, or make sure you don't have to be rushing at the end of the quarter to get all that done. So any other questions before you move on to kind of like the in-country part, or anything else to add?
Second comment, visa, like tomorrow, look up what you need to do and start doing it. It's like I'm not saying like you guys aren't late yet or anything, but like You know, there's turnaround time, there's travel time. Like, you don't want to be in a situation where you're like, wow, if I put my return address as like my home address or Stanford, what if it comes to the wrong place? Like don't do that. Just have it come here. You'll have a great, cool visa and your passport. You can show it to your friends. So yeah, just do it. And you that we don't pay for rush visa, which is like twice as expensive. So those are all good things.
Okay, so the second part is kind of more of like conduct, safety, risk, all that once you actually get into the country. Most of this is common sense, but it's still really important to go through, especially if you have less experience traveling abroad. So first, this is something they'll go over pretty extensively in the orientation. This upcoming Saturday is kind of being sensitive to norms and always exhibiting mature behavior and sound judgment at all time, and always kind of err on the side of being safe on that, definitely. Some kind of like practical security measures. Make sure you register with the American consulate there, because they can really be an advocate on your behalf if there's any sort of miscommunication or problem that happens, which is very, very rare, but it's always really important to take that precaution. And besides that, always make sure you carry a list of any like emergency phone numbers you have. Again, make sure you're not carrying all of your money and all of your important travel documents and IDs inside your wallet. Make sure you have maybe some left in your luggage, some inside your safe in your room. Have them multiple copies spread out everywhere. One important thing also you might want to do is maybe get a prepaid public phone card, just in case, say, your cell phone runs out of battery, then that's kind of like your main lifeline that's gone. So maybe have a backup even for that as well. And then as far as transportation goes, you know, always one of the main things, even if something is like a little bit more expensive, it's a good idea, again, to err on the side of being safe. For example, if you're coming home from someplace at night, pay for a taxi, even if that's a little more expensive, especially if you're in kind of like a downtown area or something like that. So just, again, always err on the side of caution on all that. And then for lodging information, which Krista and Otis can definitely speak more to, it's kind of like dorm protocol, except for hyped up. So always keeping your door locked at all times, even if you're in the room. Making sure to lock your windows when you leave. Don't give people your address. Just kind of basic common sense things like that, but they're super important. I mean, we kind of like take them pretty flippantly here with our dorm, but they're important to kind of adhere to when you're abroad. Then food and water, which if you have traveled abroad, you definitely know about this, but if you haven't, food contamination, water contamination is definitely a big issue. So, you know, making sure you maybe bring a portable filter if you like to have drinking water. Any raw food can be contaminated, so always kind of be careful about that. Again, I'm not going to like lecture you guys on what's safe to eat and what's not safe to eat, and I'll email this all out, but that's something definitely to keep in mind. And then kind of more on like the social scene kind of stuff. You know, especially when you're in a foreign place, again, I don't really want to lecture, this is all important stuff to go through that they'll also talk about on the 21st. Just like use sound judgment when you're hanging out with other people in an unfamiliar place. As well as, again, always carrying money for a cab ride home just in case you're ending up staying out later than you originally planned, or if the area you go to ends up being a little bit less secure than you initially thought it was going to be. Again, always make sure you're ready for that. And then kind of some preventative measures. Always be kind of cautious on the lookout when you're walking around. You know, some international students who go abroad like to carry a money belt or one of those neck safes. If you want to do that, that's always a good idea. And if any of your possessions do end up getting lost or stolen, file a police report immediately, because even if they can't give it back, you can use that information to submit to the traveler's insurance company. So definitely do that as well. And then finally, the last section is in case of arrest, which is highly unlikely, I hope. But again, if you ever find yourself in that situation, remember that, I mean, we all think of ourselves as American citizens, but we're in a foreign country. We just have the rights as the people in that country do. So again, be very careful. Don't admit anything or sign anything. Contact the American embassy or American consulate so that, again, they can be an advocate on your behalf and things like that. That basically wraps it up. You guys will get some more kind of detailed information and a little bit about possible scenarios that can come up on the April 21st orientation this Saturday. But otherwise, I'm going to email this out to you guys so you guys have all this information in more detail. Make sure you go to that orientation on the 21st. That's very, very key, and it's a required thing for all international fellows. And otherwise, Krista and Otis and I are feel free to take any questions you guys have.
Yeah, so one quick comment is you should also bring like prophylactic like ciprofloxacin, which is like a anti-food poisoning medicine. Like just good to have that so that if you do get sick, like you don't have to go to the hospital or go to the clinic to get medicine.
I'll add that to this form.
Where can you pick that up at?
Doctors can write you a prescription. You could probably get one from Baden. You know, like different doctors will give you different prescriptions, but just bring like a couple of courses of it. Like it's not good. Like you shouldn't just be like, oh man, I'm slightly my stomach hurts a little bit. Let me like start pounding this stuff because it's not good for you. But you know, if like I had to get hospitalized when I was in Ghana for food poisoning, so like it's nice to have that around. And living with people also like there can be pluses to that. So like my roommate was the one who was like, yeah, you should really go to the hospital. So like that's a plus, like especially if you're sort of in a more unfamiliar area, and it's also more fun. Azithromycin is the other one you might want to bring. You don't have that one's like not as key, but it's like a respiratory. So if you like start to get like bronchitis or something like that, you could take it. I mean, bronchitis or something like that, you've got like more time to get to a clinic, so I wouldn't worry about it as much. But if you just sort of want to get more drugs. Any questions?
All right. So I see you guys all on the 21st orientation. If you haven't turned in your forms yet, do that in the corner over there. And if you have any other questions that pop up, feel free to